Many people are familiar with the term Freemasonry, but how familiar are they with the inner workings of this secret society, which has remained shrouded in mystery for hundreds of years? Freemasonry is typically regarded as a civic or quasi-political organization with many local international chapters. Many are also familiar with the popular compass logo you see here, and the fact that Shaquille O'Neal is an admitted Freemason. So good old Shaq is a Freemason. How harmful can it be? They are listed in the phone book, and there also may even be a Masonic lodge in your town. There's one here. The first Grand Lodge established to govern Freemasonry in England and Wales was formed in 1717 in the City of London. The first American Mason Lodge was established in Philadelphia in 1730, and future revolutionary leader Benjamin Franklin was the founding member. The first Masonic lodges began showing up in the colonies in the early 18th century and swiftly gained power and influence. Members of Freemasons eventually played a pivotal role in the formation of the United States. 13 out of 39 signatures on the U.S. Constitution belong to Masons. However, there is a dark underside of this secret organization lurking just below its surface. In the history of Freemasonry, one of its most influential and well-known proponents was a man named Albert Pike. He lived from 1809 to 1891. Now, Pike was also a 33-degree Freemason and a general in the Confederate Army. In August of 1871, Pike sent an extraordinary letter to his Italian revolutionary, Giuseppe Mazzini. The letter predicted a series of events that would take place decades after the author's own death. Pike wrote about a Freemason Illuminati plan to deliberately orchestrate 3 world wars. He predicted the czars of Russia would fall during a first great conflict, that Nazism would be destroyed while communism would rise during a second great conflict, and that the Zionists would battle Islamic leaders in a third and final great conflict, during which they would mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, other nations will remain divided on this issue and be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economic exhaustion. Sound familiar? After this apocalyptic last battle, the survivors would receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of, guess who? Lucifer. This revelation gives us far better insight into the hidden and sinister agenda of Freemasonry. We will not go into the sordid detail regarding Pike's horrific and moral reprehensible Freemason Illuminati satanic ritual participation, but despite being highly revered for his lifetime accomplishments and having a statue of his image in Washington, D.C., we can say with all certainty he did not live his life for the betterment of mankind. In the letter, Pike was quoted as saying, "We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which is in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of the absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and the most bloody turmoil." Now, could that be happening right now? So, what role, if any, does Freemasonry play in modern-day America? What will happen next to bring us closer to the cataclysms Pike spoke of? And finally, when will these events occur? Who exactly is orchestrating these events on this world stage? And what is their ultimate objective? Join me on the next Frequency Wars. This promises to be one of our most eye-opening and informative broadcasts to date. So be sure not to miss this one.
The time to defy the modern agenda is now. UI Media Network presents Frequency Wars, an explosive new series that examines contentious subject matter pursuing us beyond our 5 senses. This weekly series discovers the intricacies of imposing issues that challenge our daily existence and question humanity. Provocative and intriguing, we confront the issues and conflicts affecting us on a global scale and beyond. The commentary and guests will shift the paradigm and defy the status quo. What will you believe? Welcome to Frequency Wars, the next revolution. And here is your host, challenging you to question everything, Tim Ray.
Welcome to Frequency Wars. I am Tim Ray, your host, and wow, we got a show for you today, all on Freemasonry, and we have icons actually in studio and on Zoom. We have Ralph Epperson, who is a historian and author, and has wrote a book actually called Masonry Conspiracy Against Christianity. We're going to be getting to all what they've been up to, and also in as well as the big conspiracies like the JFK. And did they have a role in that? And who was it? And also we have Pat Shannon, investigative journalist and author of at least 9 books. One of the latest books is everything they ever told us was a lie. He's also, you catch him on iniworldreport.com. Pat, welcome to the show. Ralph, welcome to the show. And Ralph, let me start out real quick here. How powerful are really Masons even today? It seems like this is we heard the history of it, so what's going on today?
They're still powerful. In fact, I believe they were directly involved in the assassination of John Kennedy. The Masons were directly involved. Their job was to pick the time, the date, and the location for a very important reason. Because in 1300 approximately, Jacques de Molay of the Knights Templar was burned at the stake by the Catholic Church and the Pope, and that was representing the government and the Catholic religion. So the Masons were they took a vow to avenge that death of Jacques de Molay by the Catholic and the Pope and the King. So they now were offered the opportunity to get involved directly with the assassination of John Kennedy, America's first Catholic president. That's how they were involved.
Well, fantastic. It's just amazing how a bloodbath, vow can actually take it to the extent of where they were. That's kind of symbolic, isn't it? It's not so much John F. Kennedy did anything to the Freemasons. It's more symbolic of Christianity did something to the Freemasons. So that's part. At the 30th degree, the Mason takes a vow with a sword in his hand to destroy Christianity. That's why I wrote the book called Masonry, Conspiracy Against Christianity. That is their true purpose, end quote, quote. Their true purpose is revealed at the 30th degree. And he takes a sword and vows to destroy Christianity. All 29th, 30th degree Masons on their way to the 32nd degree have taken that vow, including something like 14 of our presidents. Huh. So here it is. And now let's say these presidents, not everybody is, because the Masonry is basically kind of like the military. It's like you need to know basis depending on what level degree you get to, right? You start out at a degree 1, whatever it may be, and you work your way up to 33 degrees. So
32.
30, okay. And then at that point, you're shared, kind of like in Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard. You don't know what really is going on until you reach this highest whatever level. It seems to be this kind of Pat Shannon, a multi-marketing MLM program here for these conspiracies and for these anti-Christian groups, whatever it may be. So this level, what's been your exposure to Masonry? Because he's saying that Ralph's saying it's very powerful. They're being very powerful today. Probably one of the most powerful groups out there.
I cannot disagree. Their most powerful weapon, I think, is deception. Mm. And the goal to destroy Christianity, that's also straight out of the Talmud.
Right.
I'll give you a great example. My dad was a strong Christian man, elder in the Presbyterian Church, 50 years old, and he ends up joining Masonry.
Wow.
Got deceived into it. Well, he thought it was a family tradition. Right. His uncle, my great uncle, was the right-hand man of Hearst, and he was editor and publisher of the Chicago Daily American, I think they called it then, back in the 20s. And he played bridge with Babe Ruth, and I mean, all the biggies. He rubbed shoulders with all of them. But he also was a 33rd degree Mason. And that, as Ralph indicated, that's honorary. 32 is what you earn.
Well, I mean, it's pretty. I mean, here they are. I mean, they must have had some type of warm up before they get to the 33 degree. And either Ralph or Pat, you could chime in, because if you grew up as I'm sure a lot of these people enter as a Christian, or whatever the case may be, or their religious belief.
They're deceived.
Or they're deceived, and then is it a slow, like a frog in the warm water? By the time you get to 31, 32, you're like, who needs God? I mean, it seems like once you hit 33, to get you got to actually talk. You got to speak against Christianity. Seems a pretty big, oath to take at that point. Ralph, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, that's true, except let me explain. Albert Pike wrote, "If you reflect, my brother, you will no doubt suspect that some secret teaching was contained in these words. They don't explain it directly, but they do indirectly. And it's very simple to explain in a couple of minutes. During the first 3 degrees, the initiate, the man who's joining the Masons, is asked, I'll call him the vice president, takes him around through a ritual, and then at the end of the ritual, he's taken before the Grand Master of the lodge, and the lodge asks, the president asks the vice president, what do you seek for this initiate? And he answers, light. And then in the second degree, more light, and in the third degree, further light. But then at the end of the third degree, there's a discussion. It's called a lecture. And in that lecture, he explains that they learned the true nature of deity in that ritual. Now that means that they're looking for light, but they don't explain what the light represents. Never. Because
Ralph, also I know they fleece those new members pretty well with a lot of dough, and you pay your way to the third degree. I don't know how much each level cost, or have you any idea how that works?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
But so it sounds like a mixture of a corruption in the process. As you go in the ranks, you get corrupted either through a monetary system or through a deception system, where you think you're doing this for God, and turns out you end up doing it for Lucifer, right?
Right.
And that's a pretty big switch going on.
That is revealed in the book called Morals and Dogma, which was given to the Masons for over 100 years. In 1984, something like that, they stopped giving that book away because it was too difficult to read. But let me point out to you that in the book, Morals and Dogma, Albert Pike tells them who is the light bearer. He wrote, quote, Lucifer, the light bearer, is it he who bears the light? Doubt it not. Now that's as far as they go. You are to connect that. You were asked, you were told that you were seeking the light. They told you that the light represents the true nature of deity. And then in about this 19th chapter of Morals and Dogma, Albert Pike says, Lucifer, the light bearer, is it he who bears the light? Doubt it not. Now you are to connect that, because it's a secret concealed for you to figure out and ponder and reflect upon, that the true nature of God is Lucifer, Satan, the devil. That is the God of the Masonic Lodge.
Wow. That's fascinating and kind of blows my mind, Pat, because, I mean, there's Freemason lodge. There's one right here in Roswell. They're almost in every city, a Freemason lodge. And so it's almost like it's Satanism hidden behind Christianity. I mean, it just seems like it is a deception, if that is what Ralph's saying is accurate.
They talk about God, and the Christian thinks they're talking about the Christian God. Yeah. And so God is, they use that term all the time in the lodge meetings. What they don't allow, and you can bring in Buddha if you want, you just cannot bring in Jesus Christ. He is outlawed because he's the only one who can whip him. You agree with that, Ralph?
Yes, that's true. You cannot pray. You cannot even mention Jesus in any other, but you are, when you take the vow, inside the lodge, you're doing it on the Bible, but the Muslim does it on the Quran, and the Buddhist does it on whatever book they have. But that's the basic understanding. But on top of the Bible is a square and the compass, which is telling you that the square and the compass supersedes the Bible, because you cannot pray. You cannot mention Jesus. You can't even have a opening or ending prayer. But they do pray to their God during many of the ceremonies. That's what I learned by reading Magnum Opus, which is the rituals written by Albert Pike, the world's greatest Mason, in fact, the leader of the entire Masonic worldwide movement. Wrote the book called Morals and Dogma. You can read it yourself. It's a very boring and tedious book, but I've read it twice. I've got 2 copies back in my home, people call me and I go through it, show them what's important. But I'm telling you, the Mason does not learn directly. He's got to ponder and reflect. And that's what Pike says over and over and over again in that book and many of the other books he writes. You will not be given this information until the 30th degree. And Pike then says, I have revealed to you the true purpose of Masonry, which is the destruction of Christianity. But even then, they can't say it. The Mason is brought before three skulls. One represents Jacques de Molay with a tiara, with a laurel wreath, which is a sign of Caesar and or the Olympics. When the Olympics champion won, he got a laurel wreath to tie. The second one is a crown, which represents government, and the third is a tiara, a three-tiered symbol of the Pope of the Catholic Church. So he takes a vow to avenge the murder of Jacques de Molay secretly in that ritual, and he learns the true purpose of Masonry, which is the destruction of Christianity. Every 30th degree Mason has taken the vow to destroy Christianity. Whether he understood it or not is up to him. If he does understand it, quite likely he'll be invited into the 33rd degree.
Pat, this is phenomenal information, because you're looking at 30-degree Masons, you're looking at FDR, you're looking at Winston Churchill,
Harry Truman.
You're talking about, and so whether, like Ralph said, either they still at 33 they had to know they weren't praying to Christ anymore and to God. They had to be praying to Lucifer at that point. So here they are.
But maybe they were all along.
Yeah, maybe they were all along.
Maybe they weren't Christians to start with.
Yeah. So this is just revelation information here, that because a lot of people, like Freemasons, a secret fraternity is what they're known for, right? Like all these secret societies, and it just seems that we have key people. I mean, at George Washington, was he a 33-degree Mason?
No, I don't think he was 33. In fact, he allegedly resigned. He denounced it. Is that true, Ralph?
Who did?
George Washington.
Well, there's a debate about that.
Yeah.
He was given a book called Proofs of a Conspiracy, written by John Robeson, an Englishman, Mason. And Washington wrote a letter about that because the minister sent him the book to warn him that the Illuminati was in America. And Washington admitted they were. But there's a double negative. He used a double negative, which also implies that he knew. I'm convinced that the founding fathers were all Luciferians. They were not great and noble men. They were not even deists. They gave Congress total power. Our founding fathers gave Congress total power. And we're supposed to believe that's honorable and worthwhile. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 gives Congress the power to legislate in all cases whatsoever. That's unlimited power. They have the power in the Constitution, which was unanimously approved by generally the Masonic Lodge.
Wow. I mean, talk about going out and fighting for your freedoms now, Pat. I mean, what you concur? What's your thoughts on that? Our founder fathers being created in the Luciferian energy of what we're experiencing today.
Well, it's also phony today. I'm proud to be in America, or at least I'm told I'm free.
You understand? On the back of our dollar bill, in Latin, it says Annuit Septis Novus Ordo Seclorum. Around the pyramid. Annuit means announcing. Septis means the conception of. Announcing the conception or announcing the birth of the Novus Ordo Seclorum, the New World Order. There's a pyramid in that circle, which is the two parts of the Great Seal of the United States. This is the eagle side, this is the pyramid side, and in the pyramid side around it is Latin. We don't speak Latin in America. Why did they put that there? To conceal the fact that they committed this nation to the Novus Ordo Seclorum, the New World Order. Yeah. George Bush didn't talk about it until 1990, but Ralph Epperson went around the country in 1985 to 87 discussing that. the circle, what did it mean, and what did the New World Order mean? It's a totally new, different civilization. That's what our founding fathers committed us to that and gave Congress all unlimited. You can read that in the Constitution yourself. It's easy to do.
And it must be a little bit more than just a slight touch of irony that the Illuminati was born on May the 1st, 1776.
Which was who?
The Illuminati. Who?
Oh, Illuminati. Illuminati.
Yeah.
I thought, okay.
It came along the same year, the same summertime as the Declaration.
Well, yeah. Go ahead, Ralph.
Ralph, you reminded me, and I regret not bringing along, I have a copy of that Masonic Bible with what you described a few minutes ago.
Oh, good.
In my dad's stuff. And if I just thought to go into that old box, I could have brought it along.
See, my understanding of the Masonic Bible, and it's a separate Bible then from Christianity Bible, of course, but it has some, things associated to it. And towards the end of it, it's all about, they talk about the Egyptians, they talk about the sun, and they talk about this other type of worship, and it's all alluding to the illuminated Lucifer, right? So, okay, let me just back up. This is just mind-blowing for me to think that our country was created in the intention of us being the United States being the New World Order big guy in the shot. Because look where we're right now. I mean, look what all these other countries call us. Look at what Iran calls us, the big Satan, right? The great Satan. So if we were created in that, so that means the Constitution and everything we else have been doing has been what? Controlled opposition. It looks like freedom, but it's not. I mean, how does this work? Because we're like the least uncontrolled. We're the most freest country in the world because of that. I mean, how does this work?
We believed in the Declaration of Independence,
yes,
which said we had unalienable rights.
Yes. And
unalienable means that they cannot be taken away by anybody, any government, any majority, any minority. But that's blasé. That's old-fashioned today. That's what we're being taught by the Democrats, which are out to create the New World Order. We're going through the steps right now of creating this New World Order. Why are they abolishing the police?
Yeah.
Why do they want to abolish the police? The police represent represent laws and reactions to law. If they get rid of that, the New World Order will be, which is a total new government with no government, lack of government, which means abolish the police, and they're free to do whatever they jolly well want. And that's what's being demonstrated right now in our cities. They're destroying property because there's no police to stop them. That's called the New World Order.
Yes, and I understand that complete, Ralph, but I want to, we'll get into that, and we'll get into where we are today with the Freemasons, but I do want to look back real quick because I think that we need some type of conclusion. So Ralph just alluded to, Pat, that the Declaration of Independence does give us the inalienable rights of God, right? But so is it fair to say that the United States wasn't created perhaps in the intention of Lucifer, but it was created in the intention of freedom, but it was quickly in the beginning phases co-opted by the Illuminati and the Freemasonry agenda? Would that be more accurate, Ralph, Pat?
I think that's very assumable, yes.
Okay, so because when you look at the Declaration of Independence, like you said, Ralph, it says we alienable rights of God, right? And they're not saying alienable rights of Satan.
That was the promise. We believed in America that was the government they were going to give us, but they did, as I said already, they gave Congress total unlimited power. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, the delegated powers of the Congress, the legislative branch of government, in Article 1 is the power to legislate in all, meaning all, unlimited power, all power.
Okay, I get that. So, okay, so listen, I get that. It makes more sense to me that it was co-opted and it was manipulated, and because that's what's going on progressively for the last at least 50, 60 years. I mean, we've been ramping up this New World Order agenda here in the United States, fighting other countries, going to other lands, fighting for other countries, fighting for big corporations, not for the Declaration of Independence. We're not fighting for people's freedom anymore. That's been long gone. So they've been ramping this up over a period of time, getting more control, more power, more influence. Corporations been rolling in. So this Freemasonry lifestyle that we have, Pat, right, what's going on in their influence and control, and this has a satanic agenda tied to this. This is a Illuminati. So Christianity unknowingly is being hoodwinked on this process over this period of time, correct?
Oh, yeah. And of course, their greatest example of that and tool, I guess, against us is the controlled mass media. Now, just day before yesterday, the facts have come out on what happened in Benghazi with the Obama administration and Clinton, and this guy has come forward. You've probably seen it on the net, and he's come forward with all the incriminating information. I mean, you're talking about treason, man.
Right.
It's the $152 billion paid to Iran to shut up, because that's how they fleeced them and kept them shut. Another great example of the Fed, because it's unlimited funds there to do
because
whatever.
we gave Congress full permission, as Ralph said. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that news media is so powerful that they can sell on anybody anything. So this guy has now gone to all 6 major agencies with this information, the same incriminating, treasonous stuff we saw on the net yesterday. He's gone to all of them with the news to see who's going to report it first. And I say none of them.
Oh, wow. Guys, we have a minute left here, but Ralph, before we go to break, but Ralph, when we get back from this break, Ralph, let's talk about the people who have influenced, who are Freemasons, 33 degrees, who are aware that they're supporting and are behind Lucifer. Let's talk about the names. Let's name names, Ralph, and let's talk about their influences through our history. And we'll get into JFK. We'll get into the different processes that Freemasonry has hoodwinked Americans, God-loving Americans, and God-loving citizens around the world to follow an agenda that that leads to Satan, which is just phenomenal to actually even process, say out loud. All right, guys, we're right back. We have Ralph Epperson. He's a historian and author, been author of Masonry, Conspiracy Against Christianity, and we have, of course, Pat Shannon here. He's an investigative journalist, many books. Everything that they ever told me was a lie. And we'll hear a little story about Pat and how Freemasonry, playing Freemasonry against them, got him out of a hot situation. We'll be right back, guys. Don't go anywhere.
Influenza viruses cause upper respiratory infections. So even if the vaccine wasn't contaminated at all, why would you give the most susceptible people an upper respiratory infection?
Yes.
In order to prevent an upper respiratory infection? Yeah. So you're actually driving the disease. And you open this part of the show with the paper that showed this in the military.
The game is to prevent the therapies till everyone is infected and push the vaccines, knowing that the flu vaccines increase the odds by 36% of getting COVID-19.
Where does that data come from?
A publication last year where the military who had been vaccinated with influenza were more susceptible to coronaviruses. Coronaviruses are in every animal. So if you've ever had a flu vaccine, you were injected with coronaviruses.
So the most important message is no flu shot. So you can only assume that it's deliberate for Robert Redfield to stand there and say that yesterday. Oh, and get them at the end of the summer. And that's going to make, and then they're going to say, oh, look, COVID-19 came back because we let you out of your homes too soon. And it won't be because you let them out of the homes too soon. It will be because you drove the flu shot. And people ran to get their flu shots because they wanted to go back to work. So the most important thing the public can do is get no shots, go back to work right now, show the natural herd immunity, and show that it won't come back in the fall because we didn't drive it, with the flu shots, because we developed natural immunity. We got out of our houses in the summer, got healthy, we'll be fine.
Welcome back to Frequency Wars. I am Tim Ray. I am here with Ralph Epperson. He's actually zooming all the way from Arizona, right? He's a historian and author, and also author of Masonry, Conspiracy Against Christianity, and of course, with Pat Shannon here in studio. investigative journalist and author of Everything That They Told Me Was a Lie. Guys, we just left off on just some information that blew my mind, how the history of America was co-opted, taken over very quickly, the intention of freedom for all and our inalienable rights, co-op and moved into a situation where we were going down a Luciferian agenda with our Congress having full rights and approval of over the actual citizens. Now, with all that being said, Ralph, is it fair to say most of the Freemasons, the people who make up the Freemasons today, who go to the lodges once a week, whenever they go to, that are in every city around America, around the world, that most of them are not 33 degrees, or most of them have no idea what we're talking about right now and would never participate in something like this if they knew this was really going on?
That's great. There are two layers inside the lodge. Those that know the secrets and those that don't know the secrets. Remember what I said? You've got to reflect and study and ponder, and then you will no doubt suspect that some secret teaching was contained in these words. And the secret is that Lucifer is our deity. We worship the sun god called Lucifer. That is our God. But they can't say it because then the Christian and the Buddhist and the Hindu would walk away. So they say, reflect, and ponder. And then if you wish to become a true Luciferian, then you know that you're going to take a sword and someday be asked to help destroy Christianity. They're doing it right in front of our eyes right now. We're being moved towards a new world order where there's going to be no government, and we're all going to have no private property, no religion, no family, nothing. The new world order is coming. That's what the Novus Ordo Seclorum means. George Bush mentioned the phrase in 1990. I mentioned it in 1985, and up to 87 in 91 cities, paid audiences. I warned them, beware the year 2000, because the new world.
We're getting very close, Ralph. We're getting very close because we're going through the final stage of the crisis and then going into the new normal, which will be surveillance, deep state, and oppression, which basically Patty's talking about is we're going into slavery.
It appears that way. I mean, people are behaving that way, wearing that silly jockey strap around their face, by the millions.
Please understand. Donald Trump is going to drain the swamp.
Well,
it's going to start very soon, and very powerful people are going to be charged, tried, and convicted and jailed.
Okay.
I'm telling you, just be patient.
Well,
it's going to happen.
Fair enough. Fair enough. A lot of people believe that, Ralph. But I mean, at this point, I'm skeptical of everybody, and I don't put all my eggs in one basket anymore. And I have to see it to believe it. So I won't be patient. I'm still going to fight for what I believe is right, and assuming that everyone is working for Lucifer, because they're pretty powerful today. I mean, Pat, they're very powerful. In fact, the judges, the special handshake people do. And this handshake is just a handshake. When you shake with somebody, it says they're a Freemason. And so what's the purpose? Why have a separate handshake? Why not just be out in front, Pat, and say, hey, I'm a Freemason.
So they can recognize each other. We shake hands when we meet.
Yeah.
They shake hands like this.
Like this, okay.
So when you meet a stranger who just might be a brother Mason,
right,
you just rub that knuckle. If he returns it,
right,
you've transmitted the signal.
Gotcha. And now, how helpful is that for a Freemason? Because it's sure not helpful for anybody who's not a part of a Freemason.
Well, they don't figure it out. If I shake your hands and rub your knuckle, and you're not a brother, you just think I'm a little friendly.
I got. So now you've had run-ins with this, with the Freemasons and with the handshake in your own court issues in the past. In fact, you even wrote a book about that. Can you give us a very brief synopsis of how it actually got you out of trouble?
Yes. It's a very long story. What got me out of trouble is initially I refused to take their a lawyer. Because I knew I couldn't trust the courts. And now on the record, it says that my counsel of record is Jesus Christ, that he was the only one I would accept. And they fought me quite a bit on that. This was 30 years ago, almost in early 91, and I was charged with conspiracy. Now, if you look at a fellow by the name of Julian Assange today, or Ed, what's his name?
Snowden.
That was me 30 years ago, except I didn't get dragged down the pike as far as they have because Jesus Christ protected me. But the Masonic part of it that you like is I had done some reading in the past and had some great arguments by that time during the 80s with my dad. And he got where he wouldn't even talk about it because, it was secret. I'm not supposed to know that.
Right.
Anyhow, one of the things I learned was the cry for help. And I had some exchanges with the magistrate and the trial judge later, where I was forced to write them a letter to explain the situation. One was, they said when they raided me, they found automatic weapons and hand grenades in my house. Well, I had to write to the court and say, hey, wait a minute, I don't have that $200 tag to have automatic weapons. ATF was there during the IRS raid in my home for 8 hours. How come they didn't haul me away in handcuffs? And the judge saw, yeah, boy, the IRS is lying. And so he hammered them down pretty good in one of the pretrial hearings. Well, a month or so later, I had the occasion to write to the trial judge about something matter. I can't even remember what now. But I signed it, and then, of course, this is all from the jailhouse. Now, they held me for 140 days.
Wow.
At Atlanta Fed. So Jim Traficant, the congressman from Ohio, and I, as American Free Press says, as far as we can tell, these are the only two people that ever beat a conspiracy charge in federal court without a lawyer. So anyhow, I wrote this letter to the trial judge and signed it, and then I put a P.S. on there, and Ralph will appreciate this. The P.S. said, "My Lord, my God, is there no help for the widow's son?"
The widow's son.
The widow's son.
That's the cry, the Mason cry.
That's the cry for help.
Cry for help.
And it's saying, I'm trapped. You got to help me. Well, of course, I was lying. I wasn't a brother Mason, but I figured he probably was.
Right.
So fight deception with deception, right?
Yeah. And it worked?
It appeared to have worked because I noticed, especially during the trial, which wasn't for 3 months later in July, but I noticed that I was getting awful good attention and rulings from this trial judge that I certainly never would have expected.
Right.
Now, the other signal is, and lawyers will use this sometimes, and you can't stand in front of a jury and say, "My Lord, my God, is there no help for the widow's son?" They'd say, "Was the guy getting goofy or what?"
Yeah.
So the signal is the old Joe Montana touchdown thing. So a lawyer can appear to be frustrated and say, "Oh my goodness," and he's sending that signal to the judge and to any Mason brother on the jury that I need your help, and that brother on the jury is obligated.
Okay, so let's talk about that obligation for a second, Ralph, because it seems like this is corruption. I mean, somebody could say I'm following an oath, but if you're going to turn, even in your circumstances, Pat, Ralph, if they're going to turn the ruling in court from a guilty to a innocent or an innocent to a guilty based on being part of a fraternity, whatever it may be. Now, it may be a satanic bloodline fraternity that people don't know, but this is taking this to an extreme of level of corruption I never even heard of. And it sounds like many judges are Freemasons, many lawyers are Freemasons, many people are. I mean, it seems like this is unfair, at the minimum.
Majority.
Well, what the gentleman just pointed out is true. By the way, you'll notice when you pull up behind a car, and you'll notice if you're sitting in the driver's seat, there's a plaque about this size, very beautiful, square in the compass. It's on the driver's side. Why? So when the policeman stops you, he walks by that symbol on the trunk and realizes that you're a Mason. He will not give you a ticket. Mm-hmm. That's what that plaque is for.
Well, we need to get some of them.
There's one for the Eastern Star. There's one for the Shriners to tell the policeman if he's a Mason, he won't ticket you. That's called Masonic justice.
Have you duplicated any of those for sale?
You can buy them. I've got a catalog. You can buy them yourself.
All right, I guess, is this a pastime, or is this still as effective and strong today, the Freemasons? Because it sounds like they're getting momentum in reference to the New World Order agenda here. But I mean, with all that being said, on a serious note, Ralph, this is a level of corruption that I never thought would exist. I mean, you're talking about high-level people throughout the United States as 33-degree Freemasons, and even lower. are influencing our society, and list some names of people that you know who are, and that history shows them a very positive light, but perhaps, you know, as you're praying to Satan, I mean, I don't know how positive that light you could put on that.
There was one Mason named Jim Shaw who became a 32nd and a Schreiber, worked his way through the offices inside his lodge. He was offered the 33rd. So he went to Washington, D.C., and he went through the ritual, and during that time, he was invited into a room with 3 33rds sitting on the other side of the table. And they greeted each other as Masons, and then the first question they asked him was, "What is your religion, Jim Shaw?" And Jim Shaw said, "I'm a Christian." In fact, he had become a born-again Christian between the time he was offered the job and the time he went to Washington, D.C. to get the 33rd. And he said, Jim said to the 3 men, "Are any of you men Christians?" And they said, "Mr. Shaw, we're not here to answer questions. We're here to ask them." Mm-hmm. So he said, "Thank you very much for coming." And he went outside, sat down. The next man went in and came out, and they sat down and talked. And Jim said to this man, "Are you a Christian?" And the man said, "No, I hate Christianity." And he said, "I got to go to that room." And Jim Shaw never got to that room.
Yeah, wow.
Which means Jim Shaw became a 33rd, but he wasn't accepted because he didn't want to reject Jesus Christ.
Well, he stepped forward and exposed him later, right? Jim Shaw wasn't even from Florida?
Yes. The Masons took his name off of the list. It's that bad. And Jim Shaw, when he got back home, took everything he could find, and with his wife and children who were apparently Eastern Star and in Malay, etc., and they destroyed everything. So now Shaw could not prove he was, but a friend, the guy that wrote the book, Tom McKinney, found a little card that he had that claimed he was invited into the 33rd degree in France. And that's the only evidence that Jim Shaw became a 33rd, except he wrote the book, he and Tom McKinney, that proves that the Masonic ritual is satanic. So he was not allowed to go into the second room.
So Ralph, I'm talking about, you know, influential people like today. I mean, like Malay knew Walt Disney. Walt Disney apparently was a Freemason. And you talk about the Disney empire today, if it's satanically based, which makes a lot of sense how they're MK Ultraing the children coming in through that system there. But you talk about the entertainment industry, you talk about Hollywood, you're talking about almost all these major corporations that run the United States for the most part are all either satanically based or even Freemason. I mean, you're looking at loaded up Freemasons. So it seems almost impossible. How are you going to stop something like this if this is the game of deception?
It's already started. Julius, I think his first name was Julius Epstein, is still alive. He did not commit suicide. I believe the Trump people got him out. He has movies and videos of everyone performing with these young girls. His former girlfriend or former wife also has the same. She's now been taken out. She's in jail, and she's got the record. And they're going to plea bargain her and say, "We want you to identify these people so they can be charged, tried, convicted, and jailed." I'm telling you, this is coming. Trump is going to try.
How do you know, Ralph, Trump's not a Freemason? How do you know, Pat, Trump's not a Freemason?
I don't.
How do you know?
How do I know?
How do you know Trump's not a Freemason?
How do I know Trump is not a Mason?
Yeah.
There's no evidence that he is. He's not performing like one. This, in my humble opinion, Donald Trump has done more for this nation than every president combined in 3 years. And he's going to do it again in 4 years because he's going to be reelected with a landslide. There are things going to happen. Powerful people are going to be tried and jailed because they committed treason.
Well, that's the word on the street, but you know, until I see it, I guess I'll believe it then. But with that being said, Ralph, the Freemason influence today seems the highest it's ever been. But do you think they're still that powerful, the Freemasons, or is that a group that's kind of dying out because the Hollywood's taking it over, or Satanism is already openly overt now? You don't need Freemasons to hide anymore and hide Lucifer anymore.
Well, I can't say. All I can tell you is that just be patient, because it's going to start very soon. And very soon these trials are going to be conducted. You might remember that Donald Trump keeps saying whenever he ends a rally, he says, the best is yet to come. What does that mean? He's not talking about the 4-year term. He's talking about the people, including the highest ranked people that we deal with every day are going to jail because they're guilty of major crimes, like Benghazi and what just happened. I don't know quite what this last thing was, but something about $152 billion was transferred. That's a federal crime, and Trump is going to prosecute those people.
All right, so
it's going to happen.
Ralph is adamant about that, and and I hope he's right. Honestly, I mean, right now, if he's not right, we're kind of up the what creek, that it is. But nevertheless, if we are, we're going to have to do it ourselves. But Pat, with what's coming down the Pike right now, with all this legislation and all the changes, and even before or after the election, the Freemasons must have some type of control still, or they would be very concerned. Because they're just not awoken to what's going on, or because what if you're a Freemason and you're realizing this, can they even get out? I mean, are they stuck in there forever? It's like kind of like the mob. Once you're in, you can't ever get out. I mean, what's your take on that? And Ralph could jump in too.
Well, I believe the deck is still stacked. I mean, Trump inherited just the whole swamp. I mean, it was far swampier than even he believed, I think. But what's wrong with Bill Barr? What's he waiting for? Is my question. And the only logical answer I can come up with, Ralph may have a better one, is he's waiting for November the 3rd to be over. The second election of Trump gives him some insurance that he's not going to tee off too many people and not get elected. And the only thing, I agree with Ralph, it's going to, in any legal election, it's certainly going to be a landslide. There are very few people actually stupid enough to vote for that Communist Party. But I'm concerned about the election fraud. The computer vote fraud has been going on for decades, right. and now we got this silly mail-in thing, and postal workers can steal the votes, and I don't know. That really bothers me, Ralph. What about you?
All of the polls are showing that Trump is behind.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Last night, Trump had another rally with 25,000 people in attendance. When Biden has a fresh rally, 12 to 15 to 20 people show up.
I know.
Do you understand? There's not one physical shred that Biden has any popular support.
Yeah.
Donald Trump, he's been going around drawing 30 to 50,000 people. In New Jersey, 165,000 people wanted to go to his rally before the pandemic started.
Ralph,
He can only take 12 or 15,000. They did it by lottery.
All right, listen, I hear you. I hear both of you on that, and we'll see in less than a month from now what's going to happen. But with everything being said, though, the truth doesn't matter anymore. Just the appearance of truth. So
right.
That's all that is. That is satanic in its own right. Is the truth not mattering anymore? But with what's going on, what are some of the high-level Freemasons? It seems like a lot of Freemasons are behind these assassinations. Freemasons are behind these conspiracies. Freemasons are behind on top-level false flags that are going forward every day. So what can you tell me about JFK's Freemasonry role that they had with killing the Catholic president? And was that a there it is, the Master Masons, three Master Masons. Mm-hmm. And so is that was just payback? Was that a payback murder, or was there some more other agendas involved in that?
I want to read from page 310 of this book.
Right.
This book was written by Charles Pottinger. You can Google him. He's a very prolific writer. 28 titles. They're all listed on Amazon. On page 310, I'll show you. So I've got my notes on it.
All right.
There. Here's what he wrote. He, once again, was a 32nd degree Mason. It was one of us that assassinated Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley, and I was able to develop that Warren G. Harding was poisoned by the Masons. That's now 4 of our presidents who've been assassinated by the Masons, and number 5 was John Kennedy. 5 of our 45 presidents have been assassinated by the Masonic Lodge. They are the most powerful organization in the land because they have the power to unordain kings.
Wow. Wow, that's a big hat to wear for a Freemason, and
Yes.
and to be part of that group and organization, knowing that, I guess, in many ways, people who are perhaps without many morals so likes that level of power and will stay involved in that. But you're talking about assassinations, you're talking about corruption in the court systems. I mean, it's pretty ugly. I mean, it doesn't get any more ugly than that, does it?
Dealey Plaza was the site of the first Masonic Lodge in Texas. That's why it was named after George Bannerman Dealey, who was a 33rd degree Mason. There's a huge statue in Dealey Plaza of George Bannerman Dealey. It's on the southern part of Houston because they went in on Main halfway and went north up to the school book depository. But if you turn to the left, there's a huge statue of George Bannerman Dealey. Dealey Plaza was the site of the first lodge. That's the reason they picked Dallas. By the way, notice this. November is the 11th month plus 22 days, 11, 20. It's underneath the 32nd degree northern latitude at the same level as Charleston, South Carolina, which has identically the same longitude, 32 feet, wherever it is, north, and then 4. The same identical. Charleston, South Carolina is where the Masons created their first 33rd degree lodge, Charleston, South Carolina. The Civil War started in Charleston, South Carolina. And I think that was a way of saying we, the Masons, are going to, from the South, are going to start a civil war.
Huh. So, Pat, you've investigated JFK very thoroughly, probably one of the most only human in the world who's, outside of perhaps Ralph, who's investigated that death of JFK. So what's your take on the Freemasons being involved in his death there?
Oh, I think there's no doubt, because of everything we've talked about the past hour, their control of the whole deep state. And plus what Ralph just read about those 5 assassinations is very interesting. Of course, a secret organization operates behind the scenes.
Yeah.
What's the name of that book again? I want to look that up, Ralph. Three Master Masons.
3
Master Masons. Okay, great. I'll remember that.
See, to me, that's just fascinating, because here it is, they have control to kill, like ordain and to unordain presidents and kings, let's just say, and Freemasonry is all around the world. I mean, this is not just only to the United States. I mean, it might have been in with us from the beginning and took over the control of that. So let's focus right now, guys, on, some solutions here. This is Conspiracy Against Christianity. Yes, that's the excellent book. Tells you.
May I suggest, if you want to learn the truth from their own literature, you need to read this book. In my 50 years of research, I've not found one other book written by someone outside the lodge that covers this subject, the 30th degree ritual. It's all footnoted back to the Masonic rituals. I would urge you, if you want to learn about them, I say this: if you don't know about the Masons, you do not know history.
Right. So, Ralph and Pat, I want to hear your take on, Ralph, you go first. So if I'm a Freemason, I'm listening to this broadcast right now, and I'm like, whoa. I never knew this. I mean, we're out there doing good at the hospitals and churches, and of course, they're not 33 degree Masons. What's your advice for them at this point, Ralph, if they're just waking up to they may be part of something that may not be conducive to their own personal beliefs of God?
You read the book.
In the back of this book, I have 2 demit letters. you can demit. You can write them a letter. And if under one of these demit letters, the Masons are obligated to read it to the lodge, which means that it's a testimony that the reason you're doing it is because you've discovered they're Luciferians. Okay?
And they have to, by their own rules, to have to read it to the whole lodge?
Yes. Huh. That's what I understand. Of course, by the way, I'm not a Mason, never been a Mason. I would never join. But that's my understanding.
Okay.
That one of the 2 letters is for those who are Christians to say to the lodge, the reason I'm getting out is because I'm a Christian. I'm not believing in your God.
Gotcha. Go ahead, Pat. What you think?
Well, of course they don't know what's going on. They still think Oswald shot Kennedy. They still think Tim McVeigh blew up the building in Oklahoma City.
Right.
They still think that 19 crazed Arabs flew airplanes on 911 into New York City in the Pentagon, and they still think that there's a bug flying around in the air called Corona that's going to kill them if they don't wear the mask. They're totally fooled, but they're also managing to fool the masses along with them, those non-Masons as well.
Well, and that's unfortunate at every level, I have to say, but there has to be a point as people wake up and go down this rabbit hole and they realize that, that they're being hoodwinked, they're being deceived, they're being lied to blatantly, but the worst of all type of lies, because they're leading people away from God. I mean, and leading them to a satanic, horrific way of living life, to whatever degree that may even look like. So this is like the worst thing that could possibly happen. There has to be some type of potential ways. I mean, you could do a demerit letter on that, but just think awareness at this point, Pat. We just got to keep people aware of what's going on and things like that.
Well, I like to try.
I don't wear a mask because I have a brain. So I mean,
I couldn't see that. What did that T-shirt say?
I said I don't wear a mask.
Zoom in.
It says I don't wear a mask because I have a brain.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So
a friend of mine in North Carolina had them made, and he mailed me one last 2 weeks ago.
So
here in Arizona, there's a $50 fine if you don't wear a mask.
Yeah, that's not satanic.
Yeah, I can't wait for the rash of lawsuits to come once they start that, because you can't.
I'm telling you, this thing that it was intended to force us into a mandatory vaccination, but the virus, if it does exist, is not powerful enough.
Right.
They're going to find a better one, but they're still going to come up with a mandatory vaccination.
Well, wait for the next false flag, Ralph. It'll probably be a 5G combination, makes everybody look like the flu. Who knows? But I mean, we'll have to deal with it when we see there. But back to what's going on, and you're talking about the judges are Freemasons, and if they're willing to change a plea based on a handshake and willing based on a cry to lie and make horrible decisions, how honorable is that? I mean, we have people in these honorable positions, and how honorable is that? It's not. And so it seems like it's too far gone, the level of corruption, unless they wake up. I mean, what do you do at this point, Ralph? Just go along with the plan?
I have to admit, it's very difficult. We have got to determine that judges should be removed once we find out. But that's that's the last thing we got to do. The first thing is we got to re-elect Trump so he can continue to bring this nation back to where it was before this pandemic started. The work that he had done in 3 years is unprecedented in the history of this nation. Let me give you a quick story. I voted for Goldwater in 1964 as a young man. I worked in his campaign volunteering. I didn't get paid or didn't do anything except walk precincts, seal envelopes, and stick stamps on. But from that point on, I realized that both parties were controlled by the same people. That's how serious, one of the first things I learned. So I haven't voted for a Democrat or Republican for, 60 years. Until Donald Trump. And I didn't vote for him because he was Republican. I voted because he was saying what had to be said. And now he's delivering on his promises. He's going to drain the swamp. We got to be patient.
Well, Ralph, he's also saying that he's going to bring the National Guard in to give everybody vaccines. I mean, so he's...
Oh, no. Wait, please.
He said that on air.
His vaccine is going to be voluntary.
Okay, but
for a while.
They're not looking.
But voluntary, blackmail voluntary is the same thing, because if you can't fly on a plane and you can't go to your food store unless you have a vaccine, that's no different than mandating it, Ralph.
Listen, here's the solution. Donald Trump just proved that medicine can solve the virus, whether it's real or not. That was the reason he did this, to show you, the American people, we don't need a vaccine.
So what's it going to do?
You go to the doctor with the symptoms, you take a pill, and 8 hours later, it's gone.
Ralph, what is it going to do come November 5th? What is it going to do? All of a sudden, okay, this has all been a big scam. We don't have to do the vaccine program. We don't have to lock down. We get rid of the 5G. It's not going to be an issue. I mean, is he going to, at the day when he's going to, all of a sudden, I got the mandate, I can change everything, or he's going to continue what he's been doing? To me, I think it's being naive. That's just my perspective. You just said it a minute ago, Ralph, that everyone, up until Trump, that you believe, everyone, the New World Order had both of their patsies on either side. They win Democrat, they win Republican. Doesn't matter. Their agenda moves forward. And so if you think the agenda is going to stop after November 5th, I mean, why wouldn't it stop when he first got president? Why are not the first 4 years it stopped? The New World Order agenda, Ralph, is still moving forward, man.
I'm talking about, you understand where we were prior after Obama and the Bushes and the Reagans, all of these stories.
They've all been moving the New World Order.
This country is still in very serious trouble. We could get the New World Order tomorrow morning. Trump is trying to stop the New World Order, but it's already being done. The reason they're allowing, the Democrats are allowing the mob scene, the people destroying property, is it's happening because of Democrats in mayors and in governors are allowing it to continue. That means that soon they're going to start getting into your house. The couple that stood in front of their house with a rifle and a pistol are being charged, not the people who went there with rifles and pistols.
Well, probably because they had a Freemason judge, you know, and a prosecutor, you know. So here it is, you know, that's not going to go away November 5th. That's all still going to be there, you know, and who knows what will happen at that point. But Pat, you want to just at this point, what do you suggest? Because I do want to talk some potential solutions. Well, what do you suggest? Say Trump is not the guy. Let's assume he's not. And I'm not saying he's not, Ralph, but I'm hoping he is. Honestly, for all our sake, I hope he is. Let's assume that he's not the guy. What do we do?
Well, first of all, I'm kind of more with you than he as far as that voluntary vaccination thing goes. Yes, initially it will be voluntary, but let us remember that filing a 1040 is also voluntary. But if you don't volunteer, they send you to jail.
That's another. By the way, I don't know if you know this. Donald Trump merged the Federal Reserve with the Department of Treasury, which means Donald Trump is now the director of the Federal Reserve. That was a major victory.
Okay, I read that. But what do you make then on that subject? What do you make of him spending all this money and giving us money? Is he trying to break the Fed, to bankrupt it? Inflate the dollar out of sight?
I have a DVD on the internet right now called Abolish the Federal Reserve, and I say this is not optional, it's mandatory.
I agree, but what is Trump up to?
Yeah, he released $6 trillion out to basically inflation has to come after that. He pushed it.
Wasn't it Iceland or Greenland that about a year or two ago that kicked out all the bankers? Eliminated their central bank?
Iceland, yep.
Iceland. I'm telling you, we can do the same thing. That's going to happen. The Federal Reserve will be abolished, I believe, probably in the second term.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope you're right. So, what do you plan on doing if Trump's not the savior, as many believe?
If what?
Trump's not the savior, as many believe.
Oh, well, it's going to be tough, I tell you, and I think he's the only hope left as far as mankind goes. The individuals are gonna have to get food storage and more ammunition and gold and silver. The only money of real value.
Got back to the basics, huh? So is there? Go ahead, Ralph. What are you gonna say?
After the election of '64, when we, the Goldwater volunteers, felt that Goldwater, in fact, we had polls saying he was going to beat John Kennedy in 60. But suddenly the assassination came along and he lost, and Johnson won, came within. Kennedy was going to stop the war in Vietnam before it started. 2 days after the assassination, Johnson stopped Kennedy's proposal to withdraw the first 1,000 troops, and then later after the election was going to withdraw them all. Johnson got us into a war with the Gulf of Tonkin event. That never happened.
Right. So I remember in that '64 campaign too, Johnson was pointing the finger at Goldwater saying, and he wants to go into Vietnam. And by 1965, Johnson had 500,000 troops in Vietnam.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you look back at history, you can see the agenda moving forward about war and the corruption and the centralization of power as we go forward, the sustainable development plans in each of the different cities to move forward with the depopulation program. I mean, it's pretty big and scary once you go down the rabbit hole. But I guess my questions for you gentlemen here, and we'll try to wrap this up here shortly, is that as we're going down this road, whether somebody like Trump's going to come in, save the day or not, it's going to take at some point the American people, even if it is a Trump, he's going to need the support of the American people to step up and start claiming back their own rights and freedoms. But if legally we're not able to, if the courts can't allow us, or if the courts won't let us protest, like my belief, my false flag belief, is that these rioters are allowed to happen. It's not just a Democratic thing. I believe a lot of governors and all these things, Republican ones are all a lot of them are sold out as well, the rhinos for the most part, is that they're allowing this false flag to happen because it's all paid rioters for George Soros pays them, right? Is to bring in enough fear for the American people to give even more rights over to the government, whether Trump's president or not, to give more rights to them to stop these rioters. And when you give more rights to the government to stop the rioters, guess what happens? Nobody can protest potentially, not even good American people, if they disagree with a forced vaccination or a black male vaccination program or a 5G rollout or some other known thing that may be coming down the pike that we don't know. So what if this whole setup, Ralph, is to eliminate all protests, whether we're putting a martial law or not? I mean, what if that's a part of the agenda?
This is where we're going. If Trump gets his way, please understand, Trump is trying to restore this nation. This nation has been led astray since the founding of it because, as I pointed out to you, our founding fathers gave Congress total unlimited power. That's got to be taken care of, and Trump's going to, I believe, will take care of that. We've got to eliminate this big desire to use government to solve all of our problems.
All right. Well, I mean, I hate to tell you, but Trump's government, he's in the government executive branch.
Let me tell you this very quickly.
Yeah.
Just a couple of days ago, maybe like Friday last week, there was a march led by a black pastor in Washington, D.C. After Trump gave some sort of speech from the White House, people went to hear him, and they were all predominantly wearing blue shirts because they said back the blue, meaning the police. They supported the police, and it was led by a black pastor, and 90% of the people, I would estimate, were 5,000 people marching on Washington, D.C. Not one car was overturned, not one building was burned, but these were black people saying, we've had enough. We've been supporting the Democrats for 50 years nationwide. They keep promising us. They're not delivering. When you watch one of Trump's rallies, notice there's a good 10, 15% of the hundreds or thousands of people there are black people who are leaving the Democratic Party to vote for Donald Trump. They're not going to not vote. They're going to vote for Trump and do so strongly.
Listen, I'm not disagreeing with you in reference to the Democrat Party's far gone communist crazy out of the ballpark here. But the best of two evils, right? You're looking at potentially, and yeah, of course, Trump looks like a saint compared to these guys, So with that being said, I just want to say one last thing here is that with what's going to be coming forward, people who are Freemasons have had a role, and they're playing a role with this level of corruption that sounds like it's been occurring, that to the point of when they realize that this is This is a Christianity versus evil type of a situation, or a spiritual versus evil type of situation, which doesn't get a lot of play here. And we're going to spend a lot of time on that. But when the bottom line comes to is that we're going to have to decide. Freemasons are going to decide whether they want to continue doing this or not. And it's tough when your corruption comes in with money and other things. So last bit of advice you'd want to say to anybody out there who either is not a Freemason or a Freemason thinking about becoming a Freemason, and mute Pat, and then tell us how we can reach you guys. And fascinating conversation. People need to go back and really replay this and to hear all the details. Go ahead, Ralph, you go first.
Much credit. Thank you. I would suggest that people start a program of watching DVDs. I've got 26 DVDs in my catalog, and they're all easily understood. They're very clear, all done on PowerPoint, vivid colors, pictures, documents. I hold up the book, whatever. By the way, I would like, if people want this, I don't have anything to do with this book, but if you want to read about the Kennedy assassination, you need to read Crossfire by Jim Marrs. Now, I know it's 500 pages, but this is the most brilliant book that I've read. I have nothing to do with the fact Marrs is now gone. I don't know who's going to sell, but the book is being sold. I would urge you to, but go to Ralph Epperson on the internet, Google video, Ralph Epperson, and start watching my DVDs.
Excellent. Ralph, thank you so much. You want to say something else? Go ahead. What do you want to say about it?
Well, I was going to say, they're very easy. I would start. In fact, if you're on Facebook, make me a friend, and I'll send you a recommended 5-video series that you could start watching. That'll give you the fundamental. One of which proves that Bill Clinton is a conspiracy realist. He admits there's a conspiracy. He admits they elected him, and he admitted that they are controlling both political parties. Bill Clinton said that with his own mouth on live national TV. I've got a video, DVD called Clinton's Conspiracy. You need to watch. Clinton is one of us. I'm a conspiracy realist, not a conspiracy theorist, because I'm able to prove this. And Bill Clinton not only proved it, he lived it.
He added to it. Go ahead.
Well, J. Edgar Hoover said the same thing, essentially, that Americans, would not believe the size of the conspiracy.
Oh, yeah. The big lie, Hitler said you'll believe the little lies, but not the big. Not the
By
big
the
lie,
way, J. Edgar Hoover was a 33rd degree Mason.
There you go.
By the way,
who's not a 33rd degree Mason?
Yeah, what a surprise.
By the way, Jesse James, the famous outlaw, lived to be 103 and was called the
Excuse me.
Yes, he was called the wealthiest man in the world, Jesse James. He was elected a United States Senator. Jesse James sat in the Senate of the United States for one term, 1901 to 1907. He was a 33rd degree Mason. He was the wealthiest man in the world. That's a whole story, 4 hours long, called Jesse James.
Was one of his names.
Was one of his names. I would urge you, if you want to just sit down and watch the truth about that man, it's on the internet. Watch it, 4 hours long.
Well, you never hear about that. We don't hear about, that's the history is he got killed in or whatever, You don't hear that he was a senator, and amazing how false our history is. And it's just tough that we're indoctrinated and brainwashed, Pat, into believing what is so untrue. I mean, just what blew my mind is the founders of the United States were Freemasons, and on top of the levels, and they might have not started out, they might start out with good intentions with the Declaration of Independence, but it got corrupted throughout the time. So you want to have people reach you, and also any last comments you want to mention?
Well, those who want to know more of the truth about the corona bogus pandemic, go to my website. It's loaded with the doctor's information on how you are actually making yourself ill by wearing the mask, inhaling the carbon dioxide that God meant for you to exhale and get rid of. And of course, less oxygen makes one more susceptible to illness. I got literally there are hundreds of doctors worldwide that have come out with this information now, but once again, it's suppressed by the Masonic news media.
Yeah, the Masonic news.
So I would urge people, Independent News International is, the website is simple, INI worldreport.com. You can go there, and my books are there as well, but mainly the current information we update almost every day. And for the last 3 or 4 or 6 months, it's been almost everything on Corona. I have a friend who's attempting to coin a new term in replacement for BS. He calls it Corona.
Yeah, it is out of hand, honestly, and people are hopefully waking up in the masses at this point, but they are waking up basically, I would say today, thanks to you, Pat, and thanks to you, Ralph, for sharing your not only your information and your investigative work, but also sharing your brilliance, and it's just amazing how you guys are just keep going strong and keep putting information out there. I strongly recommend everybody to reach out to Ralph Epperson and Pat Shannon. Get the information. Go to Pat's INIWorldReport.com. Brilliant information. I look at it as well, and it's just it's a new world, guys. But it doesn't have to be a new world order. Right?
Good.
So next time we're going to be talking next week. We've got a presentation I did down in Jekyll Island. We'll be showing that next Wednesday. 2 rounds of standing ovations, guys. Yeah, you're going to want to hear the information I shared. A way we could take our country back peacefully. Coming up. Till then, guys, we'll see you then. This is Frequency Wars signing out. Adios. If this content resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel at uimedianetwork.org to stay updated with our uncensored shows. Also, like and follow us at UI Media Network on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and almost all your favorite podcasting platforms. Most importantly, if you're being censored on social media, write to us at contact@uimedianetwork.org to get your message out. And remember, keep raising that frequency.
Thank you for watching Frequency Wars, brought to you by the UI Media Network at uimedianetwork.org, the home of innovative, uncensored, conscious media. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at UI Media Network. And be sure to sign up free at uimedianetwork.org to watch all of our uncensored content. See you next time on Frequency Wars, the next revolution. The UI Media Network and its associates take no responsibility for the opinions and statements made by the talk show hosts or their guests.